Coming up on a very special episode of Red Podcast, an entrepreneur on a mission.
Damian Johns from Shark Tank is having a special event down here, so we came downtown to see what it's about.
A bad decision.
All right, y'all, we're going inside the hotel right now.
Dreams are shattered.
We get upstairs and find out Damian is not even here.
Words are exchanged.
I want the information from him, not from somebody else.
Bridges are burned.
That's a scam. It's a scam, and she don't get my $15 bill when we get across the street.
Some wounds will never heal. Next, on a very special episode of Red Podcast.
This is episode number 210. A lot of people are pissed about the Daymond John event. I've got that and also what you need to know about licensing your name. Is it a good idea? Maybe. That's coming up.
This is the Red Podcast, the marketing podcast for influencers. Rise above the noise. Expand your audience. Deliver impact. Here's your host, David Hooper.
I was at South by Southwest about 15 years ago. And when I say South by Southwest, I'm talking about the music business portion of the event. It's 3 events: music, film, and interactive. The film and interactive came along later. And these days, when somebody says South by Southwest, a lot of times they're talking about the interactive portion. This is the music portion. So I'm down there looking at bands, handling some music business stuff, and there's an audiologist. He's on the trade show floor, and this guy's selling custom earplugs. Working in music, working in radio, I've always been concerned about my hearing. Without hearing, you have no business. So I said, yeah, sign me up for some of those. And the first thing this guy does, because he's got to take a mold of your ear, he looks inside it, see what's going on the inside. So he looks inside my ear. I can't do you today. You've got some stuff in there. When I put this stuff in your ear to take the mold, I'm afraid it's going to get impacted. It's going to make your hearing worse. You're not going to be able to hear anything. Sounds pretty bad, right? So I talked to him a little bit more about it. He says, no, don't worry about it. This is common for people who work in radio, people who work in music. You just get stuff in your ears. You're sticking stuff in your ears all the time. Stuff gets in there. Don't worry about it, but you might want to have it get checked out because someday you're going to wake up and you're not going to be able to hear anything. When that happens, don't worry. So that was 15 years ago. And that day he was talking about, that happened this week. My alarm was going off for 15 minutes. Couldn't hear a thing. Wake up, not worried. I'm just thinking, well, this is the day. This is what he told me 15 years ago. It was pretty bad. When I put an earbud in my left ear, which is the ear that was affected, it sounded like that was it. Would have been pretty scary if I didn't know this was coming. I knew it was coming, fortunately. Called a doc in the box because I couldn't get in to see my regular doctor. I wasn't going to wait on it. And it's a pretty common procedure. Most musicians that you know, most people who work in radio, people who work with their ears, they've had situations like this. And you simply go into the doctor. They've got this thing. It's kind of like a vacuum. Scrape everything out. You're good to go. So I call my doc in the box. Super easy. They take my insurance, even without an insurance, $99, worth it to be able to hear, right? So I go to the doc in the box. It's in the back of a major drugstore right next to the pharmaceuticals. And it's one of those things, I felt like I could go in there as a nurse practitioner or somebody in there who can prescribe medicine. And I felt like, oh, I've got back pain. Give me some OxyContin. And this guy would have totally gone for it. There's actually a woman in the back. She didn't introduce herself or anything. She just says, David, come on in, sits down. And she looks in my left ear. This is the next day. Everything's fine. A few hours after waking up, hearing returns back to normal, no problem at all. But she looks in the right ear. She said, yeah, we might want to clean this thing out. Looks a little dirty in there. Do you still want to do it? I said, yeah, let's do it. First thing she does, she's got some warm water, peroxide, fills my ear up with this warm water and peroxide. And as she's squirting it, the pressure's building up. This is just like fracking for oil, but she's fracking for all the junk in my ear. She's putting water in there, hoping the pressure builds up, and bam, everything blows out, breaks everything apart, and then it just comes flowing out. That's not working. She reaches into her drawer, gets a long instrument, looks like a dental pick. Long, Kind of got a pointy end, but it's round, so she can scrape everything out, and she sticks it in my ear. And just when I think she can't go any farther, keeps going deeper and then deeper and deeper. And in between, scraping. I think I'm going to barf right there in the doctor's office. Finally gets done, gets everything out, it's cleared out. I'm sitting there in a cold sweat, head in my hands, just waiting for her to fill the paperwork out. For the next 2 days, my ear is bleeding. Feels like I've got a runny nose, but it's in my ear. You put a Q-tip in there to get something out, it's blood. And nowhere during this visit did this woman let me know what was coming up. Did she let me know how much longer the procedure had to go? Did she let me know that, hey, David, you did a pretty damn good job because this process hurts like a motherfucker? And I mentioned this because as business owners, we all have these experiences where we've got somebody coming to see us and there's something painful they have to go through. For example, coaches, consultants, a lot of times we give out advice that our clients don't want to hear. Sometimes we get customers that are just pissed at us. They're not having a good experience. And when that happens, it's nice to respond with empathy. If you had somebody in your office doing the equivalent of breaking into a cold sweat about to pass out, you'd probably show a little bit of it. This woman did not. And I want you to keep this in mind as I talk more about Daymond John Launch Academy on this episode. If you haven't heard the original episode, redpodcast.com/208 has it. I was talking to a lot of people afterwards. They did not have the same experience that I had. Read up on a lot of people who had actually paid the price to go to the $2,000 event. Some of them paying as much as $25,000 to go to Daymond's big event, $4,000 just to have lunch with Daymond. That's the kind of money this guy was bringing in. They didn't have such a great experience. I'm talking about that. I'm talking about licensing your name because you're going to have an opportunity to do things just like Daymond is doing. Should you do it? Can you make a lot of money? Yes. Will you have unhappy customers? Maybe. Going to dive deep into that subject. This is the Red Podcast, the podcast for influencers. If you're a blogger, podcaster, speaker, marketer, nonfiction author, or entrepreneur, basically, you're a person with a message that you want to spread and you want to make people care about that message, this is the podcast for you. Red Podcast shows you how to do just that. Take that message and spread it. I'm going to help you make that easy by showing you how to make a name for yourself. And as a bonus, I'm going to show you how to make money while doing it. I talk about book publishing, podcasting, speaking, and other elements of your business that you must master to grow and engage your audience. That's what RED stands for. Reach, expand, and develop your audience. Speaking of doctors, went to go pick up my mail today at the P.O. Box, and I had this waiting for me. Final notice, in all capital letters. Dear David Hooper, our records indicate that your account balance of $136.99 is past due, and you have been notified. Please remit payment immediately. This is your final written notice of payment due. Despite the difficulty we have in taking this kind of action, our policy dictates unless further payment is received within 10 days of the postmark of this letter, this account will be turned over to a collection agency. Then it goes on and tells me how to pay. I've already paid it, though. Got the first notice, wrote my Visa number right on the reply card, sent it back to them. They didn't get it. Obviously, things have crossed in the mail, but sometimes these things happen. Of course, you know that because they've probably happened to you on the receiving end. You sent out a bill and you haven't gotten it back. Somebody says, hey, didn't get here. Problem solved, my friends. FreshBooks, when you send an invoice, which only takes about 30 seconds, by the way, you know if it's been received. You don't get payment on that, and it's easy to pay with FreshBooks. All the person has to do is click a button. They can type in their credit card right there on the computer. It's not like these guys. I sent them a postcard back, had my credit card number right on it. They didn't get it. That's not going to happen with FreshBooks. FreshBooks makes it easy to get paid, and if you don't get paid, send them a second notice, third notice, or like I just received, a final notice. FreshBooks makes it easy to invoice clients and get paid. Right now, FreshBooks is offering a free month of unrestricted use to all Red Podcast listeners. It's totally free right now. You don't even need a credit card for the trial. To claim your free month, go to freshbooks.com/red and enter RED in the How Did You Hear About Us section. I want to talk about licensing. This Daymond John event, you know Daymond John from Shark Tank. Dresses really nice. Got a shined up head. Always looks great. Well, Daymond has licensed his name to a seminar company. They've got a seminar. They call it Daymond John Launch Academy. It's a free seminar. I went to it. I reviewed it at redpodcast.com/208 if you're interested in that. And he's selling something called the Shark Tank Experience when you go there. Originally $4,000. The speaker at Damon John Launch Academy, Vince, dropped the price down just for me and everybody else in the room. $2,000 is what it cost. If you want to know how to make that money in a 90-minute pitch, I show you how Vince did it. I break down his process, redpodcast.com/208. And I talked to some people who had been to that same event in different cities about their experience. And it was completely different than the experience that I had. I had a pretty good experience. But then again, I knew I was going to show up and Damon would not be there. I knew I was going to show up and get sold on a higher ticket event. That's how these things work. A lot of people thought that Damon John was going to be there, but Damon has simply licensed his name to a seminar company. Vince or somebody else takes over. He does all the work, and Damon collects the money. Licensing is an opportunity that you have, yes, you, even at your level, and it can be used to make a lot of money. But if it goes wrong, it can go horribly wrong. Let me talk to you about some licensing nightmares. Superman, you've heard of him, right? The Man of Steel. Superman was created by two teenagers in Cleveland, Ohio. Sold the rights to Superman for $130. That canceled check, strangely enough, was kept in the DC Comics office for about 40 years. It's a piece of American history, as you can imagine. At auction, the check went for $160,000. These two teenagers, though, $130. They were done with it. They didn't get a piece of the check. They haven't gotten a piece of the licensing since. Willie Nelson, you know him. Wrote a little song called Crazy. He approached a guy, regional success, a guy named Larry Butler. And he said, hey, you want to buy these songs? They're $10 each.
Crazy. Crazy for feeling so lonely.
Larry Butler says, nope, these are too good. I'm not going to do that. And you see that a lot of times in the music business. All the time, people say, hey, I want to sell you my song. I want to sell you my song. $10. Can you imagine that? $10. Larry was an honest guy, didn't take Willie Nelson up on that offer. Willie kept the rights to that song. It went on to become a #2 hit for Patsy Cline. It's also been recorded by hundreds of country artists, one of the top country songs of all time. You hear it everywhere. And he could have let that go for just $10. That's a story that ended up okay. Willie Nelson realized the value of his song. Because of the success of that song, he's been able to get other songs cut, made even more money, not only as a writer, but also as an artist. So that's what can happen when you realize the value of what you're bringing to the table. What happens when you don't realize the value of what you're bringing? Two guys in Brazil, they had a song. It was a rumba, not exactly something that you hear in a club, but a Miami DJ, he started getting requests for it. Not exactly something he could play, but he was getting so many requests, he decided to do an American-style remix. Calls up a couple of his buddies. These guys are working in radio. This song becomes a huge hit. Not just in the United States, not just where it started in Brazil, but internationally. In the US alone, 14 weeks at the top of the Billboard charts. The biggest one-hit wonder in the history of music. So this guy's a DJ, his buddies are DJs. They want to be stars themselves. They don't want to just remix people. So they make a deal with BMG, formerly RCA, huge record label. It's all right, we'll let you release this. We'll give you this song as a work for hire, all the post-production that we've done, basically rewriting the song to make it a hit. $1,500. But we also want a record deal. Well, they got their record deal. They got their $1,500. But what they didn't get were any of the royalties that this song has continued to generate. You still hear it at weddings. Still hear it in arenas. You still hear it on television. When you think about the 90s, you think of this song. Do you know what it is yet? Macarena. $1,500 plus a record deal that went nowhere. Brian Epstein, you know Brian Epstein, producer of the Beatles? He sold 90% of the Beatles merchandising and licensing rights. So that means for every Beatles lunchbox, pin, fanzine, he was making 10 cents on the dollar. A bad deal for one of the top bands of all time. And you hear these nightmares all the time. Well, Damon John did something similar, licensed his name to a seminar company. He's probably making money, but let's talk about what he's losing, because you've got a lot more to lose than money when you do a bad licensing deal. These quotes, the very beginning of the show, you heard a woman talking about the Damon John event. That's what she calls it.
Damon John's from Shark Tank is having a special event down here. So we came downtown to see what it's about.
That was from a video. It's called Fake Ass Event. Where is Damon John? I got my $15 back. Sonia Be On It is her name. Let's listen to a couple clips.
Okay, y'all, here go his picture. But how about he's not even here today? Look, got his picture and everything, but he's not even here. That's a scam. It's a scam, and she don't get my $15 back when we go across the street.
There's all sorts of YouTube videos just like this. People who are frustrated at showing up for an event where they think Damon John is going to be there. He is not. And this is a woman who was super excited to go to see him. We can assume she's a fan. We can assume that she loves Damon John's FUBU clothing. We can assume that she loves Shark Tank, loves what he's done. She's a super fan. And somebody like Sonia Be On It, she's the last person that you want to piss off. She's a person who's traveled. She's paid for parking. She's a fan. Let's check in on Sonia.
They need to let people know that. Don't got me all glorified and he ain't even here. That's not how you do business. If you put your picture out there saying that you're going to be at a certain event, you need to be there. Not allow people to arrive unexpectedly, pay $15 to park, and you're not here.
She's somebody who possibly came from a great distance. She's a fan. She knew who he was. She's probably read the books, watched Shark Tank, bought his clothes. She loves Damon John. Yet that relationship is killed because he's making just a little bit of money. This guy's a millionaire. Why does he need more money from, as she says, a fake-ass event? He doesn't. He doesn't. But because he went for that, he's likely killed that relationship. Let's see if Sonia's calmed down yet.
I want the information from Damon John, from Shark Tank. I didn't want it from nobody else. Hell, I can look at TV, some of these seminars on TV. I'm pissed off.
And a ton of people felt that way. Tons of people reaching out to me once they heard the podcast. And the podcast I'm referring to, again, redpodcast.com/208, said, David, we did not have this same experience that you had. They must have cleaned it up. They must have gotten better. And maybe they did. Or maybe it's my way of looking at it. Go to redpodcast.com/208 and listen to it. You be the judge. But if you look at YouTube under Damon John event, you're going to find a lot of people complaining about it. Now, Sonia Be On It, she was mad for a number of things. One of them, that she spent $15 for parking. Some people spend as much as $25,000 for an event that Damon John really has nothing to do with. So let's get into the nitty-gritty and talk about how this affects you. Your image is worth a lot of goodwill. It took you a long time to build your reputation with somebody. You license it, you lose control of it. This is one of the problems with partnerships. When you take a partner online and you're not sure who they are, you've never met him in person, not really talked to him much on the phone, don't know about his or her reputation, they can drag your image into the ground within hours. And this can happen any number of ways. I get a lot of offers for people who want me to contribute to a packaged product. You may have seen them. 10, 20, 30 people will throw in a book, a report, a consultation call, a newsletter. Everybody mails to their list. For a low price, the buyer gets a big package with 20, 30 things. And the way the organizers of these packages get people to participate is that in theory, you've got 20, 30 people mailing out for you, and you can build your mailing list off the mailing list of those 20 or 30 different people. Does it work like that? Sometimes. Can it devalue your product? Absolutely. Because this organizer, this is the guy who really benefits from it. He's building a huge list by having 20 or 30 people mail for this big package. And when anybody buys the package, he gets the list 100% of the time. The way you get the list is if people sign up for what you've got within the package. That doesn't always happen. And what do you think's within the package? Cheap stuff, stuff that's out of date, stuff that people couldn't sell. You've got organizers that just because they want to make the package bigger, they're going to take everybody because the organizer is the one that benefits the most. So you, as a top shelf guru, you're there with the B, C, and D level people. You've licensed your product to this package and you're getting dragged down. You have a lot more to lose than you have to gain on a deal like that. It devalues your brand. You don't see Steve Martin doing community theater. When you go into Costco, do you see a top brand in Costco? Do you see Coach selling bags in Costco? No, absolutely not. And if you see something like Adidas, Puma, Levi's, it's a second-tier version of that. You're not going to see Nike in there. When it comes to luxury items in Costco, you're either going to see a second-tier brand or the second-tier offering from a second-tier brand. That's because your brand gets devalued. Don't do that with yourself. Damon, in my opinion, huge mistake. Put a lot of time and effort into building FUBU, Shark Tank, and other related investments. He's got all this goodwill. And he's got multiple people out every weekend selling this thing with his name on it. He's not even involved. No control. He's probably seen very little of the money. There's very little upside for him. Let's check in on Sonia, see how she's doing.
Let me tell y'all something. I know it was a free ticket, but please don't mislead somebody just because it says free. If you were not going to be here, you should put something on your marquee or something at the bottom in fine print. I'm not going to make that appearance. I have some people on my team that will be there to give you this informative information. Then it puts me in a position to decide whether I want to go or not. Don't waste my damn gas.
What's happened to Damon? A huge issue for influencers online of all levels. Here's how it works. Like Damon, like these luxury brands, you've built this good reputation. These people want value through association. And they come to you, they say, I'll make the product, I'll do all the work, you split the money with me, you don't have to do anything. You just collect a check. Sounds pretty good, right? But it's not that you're not doing anything, you're giving them your association. You're giving them your goodwill. This is super common online. There are these companies and they all seem to be in Utah. I don't know why that is. They sell training. They sell coaching. They're notorious for high-pressure sales, worse than the Pakistani tax scam that I talked about on here, redpodcast.com/scam if you haven't heard that call. They try to get as much money as possible. If you've got $5,000 on your credit card, they're going to get $5,000. $10,000 on your credit card, they're going to get $10,000. They're very good at selling. It's a generic product, and it has your name attached. Let's say I were to do a deal with them, it would be the same generic product with my name attached. Now, how is that helping either of us? It's not. Not a bit. It's helping these companies because they can come in and through the goodwill that you've developed, they can have an easier time selling. You know David, don't you? Yeah, Red Podcast, you're a fan? Well, David has personally endorsed this training that I'm going to offer you. He loves it, swears by it. It's helped him, and it's going to help you too. How much money is on your credit card? Let's get you signed up now. That's how the pitch works. They do the same thing with your name. Now, you may be thinking, I've got no influence. I wish people would be making me those offers. Let me tell you a story about my last book. Music business book. It's called Six Figure Musician. You can look it up on Amazon. I'll have it linked at redpodcast.com/210 if you're interested in going directly to it. Came out with this book. Great marketing information. People in the music industry loved it. People outside of the music industry found out about it. That's why I'm here today at Red Podcast. And because people outside of the music industry found out about it, I had 10 or 12 people approach me and give me the exact same pitch. David, I would love to take that book. I'd love to reformulate it for my niche. Put my name on it. Put your name on it. You'll be the co-author. We'll split the money, and I'll go sell even more of them for you. Had at least 10 people make me that offer. Now, how is that going to help me? It sounds good, but if you look at people who have done this before, Guerrilla Marketing, J. Conrad Levinson, his brand means nothing now. Guerrilla Marketing, great book. Some of the original books in the series, great books. But Guerrilla Marketing has been bastardized. 50, 60, 100 books, I don't know. I lost count of them. I'm in several of them. People call me all the time to be quoted in them. Not that big a deal. It's not like J. Conrad Levinson, if he were still alive, was calling me up. Nope. It's a ghostwriter. They just put that name on it. Guerrilla marketing, it means nothing now. Even worse, Chicken Soup for the Soul, it means nothing now. They come out with a dozen new Chicken Soup for the Soul books every year. There are hundreds of them. Chicken Soup for the American Idol fan's soul. Chicken Soup for the NASCAR fan's soul. Chicken Soup for 3 times divorced women who are married to alcoholics' soul. These things are super niched out. It means nothing. They sell a few thousand of them based on the name. They're very cheap to produce. They've got a system. They get ghostwriters to write the content. It's a work-for-hire package, very similar to the Superman deal. Hey, here's $130. Let us take the rights to all this. And they put them out. And they're living off a name that was popular 15, 20, 25 years ago. There's a Chicken Soup for the Soul pet food. There's a Chicken Soup for the Soul television series. There's a Chicken Soup for the Soul radio show. It means nothing. When you start licensing your name out, it gets to the point where it means nothing. You've seen these guys online that give quotes for every single book that comes out. Are you going to trust that guy? He's going to give a quote and a great review for every single book that comes out? Don't do it. Don't do it. It devalues your brand. You don't have to be Damon John for this to happen to you. You don't have to be on TV. You don't even have to have a book. Affiliate deals, very similar. I talked about people borrowing your credibility when you have partnerships with people. Affiliate deals. How many times are you approached by an affiliate? Hey, send out this email for us. We'll give you 50%. We've already written the email. All you need to do is send it out. What happens when somebody on your list doesn't have a good experience with that product or service? It affects you. Ad deals, very similar. People borrowing your credibility. When I started Red Podcast, first advertiser that came to us, selling pills. Selling pills to make you smarter. Said they keep you more focused, let you get more done. A specific formulation just for entrepreneurs. Perfect for the Red Podcast audience. Now, what would you think about that? If I started selling pills on here, make you smarter. The reason I talk about FreshBooks is because I believe in FreshBooks. FreshBooks is a good service that's going to help you get paid. FreshBooks came to me. They wanted to use my credibility. I was like, fine. It's a great service. It's going to help people who listen to Red. Pills? Pop a pill, get smarter, more focused? Nope. Not doing it. Not worth it at any price. Speakers at your events. You doing a live event? Speakers come up to you. Hey, man, I'll speak at your live event. I'll sell from the back of the room, give you 50% of anything that I sell. Sounds like a good idea, right? Especially if these guys can close the room, and a lot of them can. What happens when somebody gets the product and they're not happy with it? You know, I went to NMX a few years ago, New Media Expo. There was a guy there named Marshall Silver. I wrote about this. This will be linked at redpodcast.com/210. You want to see the article about this. Great guy. Hypnotist. Hypnotized the audience. Had some woman pulled from the audience. Made her swallow fire on stage. Very entertaining. But a super high pressure sale for a $5,000 product. A lot of people were pissed. Lots of people. Killed the credibility of the event for a lot of people. And where is NMX now? Dead. They are dead. And this is the kind of stuff that you have to watch out for. People want to borrow your credibility. Sometimes it's through licensing. Sometimes it's through an affiliate deal or something like I'm talking about. Speaking at your event. Sometimes it's through licensing. It's more common than you think, and it's going to happen to you. Be prepared. Hey, next episode, talking about luck. A lot of people get lucky in entrepreneurship. Anybody can have success once. You one of those people? More importantly, how can you be one of those people that does it more than once? That's coming up on the next episode of Red Podcast. For more information, go to redpodcast.com. You can subscribe using one click. One click is all it takes to make sure you never miss an episode. If you listen to Red Podcast on iPhone, Android, any way you get the podcast, one click is all it takes to make sure you never miss an episode. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions or comments, reach out to me on Twitter. @DavidHooper is my username. Thanks again, and I'll see you on the next episode.
You've been listening to Red Podcast, the marketing podcast for influencers. Never miss an episode. Subscribe now with your iPhone, Android, or via RSS at redpodcast.com.